studio by Daphne. Did I get that right, my pronunciation?
Yep.
Near enough.
Yeah.
Daphne, welcome.
Hi, Graham.
It's good to have you here. We're going to talk about Jupiter Chain. We're going to talk about JEDTrade. Obviously, that's where you're from. And also the problem that you're solving with Jupiter Chain and how you got to that point, the why behind that journey as well as your current fundraise and what lies on the other side, the future for Jupiter Chain and what you're doing. Maybe you can start, Daphne, by telling us a little bit about what exactly Jupiter Chain is, without getting too technical at this stage, so we'll dive in a little bit on the technology side later on.
Okay, so can I start from JEDTrade then?
Yes,
okay,
please.
So I'm the CEO of JEDTrade as well as Jupiter Chain. So Jupiter Chain is a blockchain project that is backed by the same team behind JEDTrade. So JEDTrade itself, we are a technology company based in Singapore for about 2 years, and we're focusing on digitization projects for our clients in ASEAN, mainly in lending and supply chain financing. So Jupiter Chain came about because when we were actually building the ecosystems on the ground, we wanted to actually build a more scalable network and infrastructure that will enable us to connect the dots that we already had. So that was what actually brought us to create Jupiter Chain.
Right, and you said you were focused on ASEAN. Is that your main focus in business? So the Southeast Asian countries?
Yeah, so we started in Singapore, building out enterprise solutions with innovations in blockchain, and then later part of last year, and then we started going out to ASEAN, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, where we targeted a lot of these kind of micro economies or emerging markets, where we built out digitization kind of technologies, for example, lenders. So we actually wanted to go into these markets with a very targeted focus on building solutions around pain points, which is fragmented data, low digitization, and very manual processes. So that's what brought us to actually do, these projects. Right.
So Jupiter Chain span out of JEDTrade.
Yes.
Okay, and so explain to me what exactly it is.
Yeah, so on a high level point of view, Jupiter Chain is what we call a Smart Consentable Data Exchange, a decentralized kind of a data exchange network. We wanted to actually create an equitable marketplace for data, where data owners themselves can be equitably rewarded for contributing their data, but most importantly in a privacy preserving manner.
Right, so what kind of data would that be?
So we started with this concept, wanting to actually improve and build micro borrowers kind of credentials on a network to actually enable transparency and trustworthiness of this data. So a lot of this data pertains to your own individual data, you as a person, your identity and your credentials, and how you're able to actually contribute it in a meaningful manner to access tailored solutions. For example, healthcare, financial services, or even insurance. So we started from that point of view. Yeah.
Micro borrowers, what is that?
So if we talk about one of our use case, which is just one of them, which is in financial services. So like in the developed markets like Singapore, we're talking about normal borrowers, right? All of us has a bank account or 2 or 3.
Right.
So micro borrowers are what we call the micro, they are actually served by the micro lenders or micro finance institutions. So whereby the loan quantums are smaller, and they are actually paying via a very structured payment structure, and they may not also have a lot of credit worthiness in their records. Yeah.
Okay, so especially in these markets, the ASEAN markets, this is an issue. So where you talk about micro borrowers, you're talking about are these? Can I use the word the poor people? Are these sort of like the next billion, or is this a different market entirely?
I could say that. I mean, of course, when we talk about financial inclusion, there's a lot of talk about unbanked, but to me, my definition actually is much wider. I would call it for the masses, anyone that does not actually have adequate access to even more tailored financial products and services. So for example, let's say you and me, and let's say my income is let's say $600 and yours is $1,000. My repayment structure and my loan quantum actually should be different and tailored to me, and giving me more money does not actually get me out of the poverty. So this is where we want to actually do a lot of analytics, machine learning and AI to see how we could actually impact the lives and improve the credentials of this underserved segment.
Right, so this data is useful to the lenders as much as it is to who else would be sort of in that sort of chain, that value chain of people serving this?
Yeah, so while we were actually building out, it's a very interesting question, because while we were actually building out for our use case, we realized that as we delve further into the research and development of it, our vision actually became much bigger, because we actually found the importance of consenting data and preserving the privacy of the data. So that's where when we started building out, JEDTrade actually became bigger in terms of vision, and we realized that it was actually more like a multi-use case kind of scenario. We wanted to actually create data access models so that we will also enable like SDKs and downloads for even our solution providers to actually build on top of our network as well. Yeah.
What is the problem here that you're effectively, what's the pain point of the consumers or even the institutions serving those consumers that you're addressing?
Yeah, so I give you an example of how we will actually deploy the smart contract. So example, one of the use case, it could be a data assessor model. For example, if I'm a lender and I wanted to actually assess your data in order to actually give you a very tailored product that will actually enable you to pay, but at the same time not eat into your income, for example, right? So if I want to actually deploy this smart contract, I do not actually need to see the granular data of your credentials or your identity, but I'm actually able to have a credit score back that is meaningful enough for me to evaluate and give you out the loan. So that is one use case that we think that might be actually very interesting. The other one actually stems from my own experience. So, we work with, we speak to a lot of data analytics companies wanting to also understand different segments of people in different countries. So one of the use case could actually be some sort of like a data subscription service via the smart contract, whereby if I'm a data analytics company, I can deploy this like a middleman to actually send out this, to a segment of people and to actually disburse the rewards directly to you for contributing your data, without having to actually see the granular data out of it. So we actually found this very powerful, because what we're talking about is nobody actually is a custodian to the data, but everyone actually has the right to actually manage and control your own data.
Why would that actually be beneficial to me as a consumer to consent and give you that data? What would be the reward that I'd get out of that?
Yeah, so I think as how we're actually moving towards regulations and towards data privacy, the spirit of blockchain and decentralization, actually it's a very powerful tool to actually enable you to have the right control over your own personal data, as well as the intended use and purpose of it. And why not? And why should any centralized database be actually have ownership of your data and monetize it only for their own use? We found this, for a lot of our blockchain applications, we found this to actually to be a very useful and powerful proposition that when actually applied in the right use cases can actually bring about a lot of benefits directly to the data owners.
Right. So can we look at what is out there in the market today? So if we look at those centralized stores of data, which, for example, a lender might use, like an Experian or a Geico, for example, they would give all that information to the lender, and they can go quite granular, and they have a lot of information that we don't know that they have, right? They have access to a lot of databases out there. Is what you're suggesting directly a solution to that model? Because it's a very sort of top-down centralized model. You're trying to, in a way, give people the confidence to consent to their data, but at the same time not have the ability to trace that back to an individual, or to what I'm trying to say is that the lender can't have like really personal data on you without actually saying that's you.
So what we're trying to be a proponent of is that we are really actually applying blockchain in a way that we want to enable democracy of the ownership of your own data. And my response is always, why not? Why can't we have that, right? The way that blockchain is moving, the way that innovation is moving, it is like the future is now. It's not really rocket science that we're going to think about how we are able to have a new paradigm shift of how we're going to manage and control each other's data. And why do you actually need to know my granular data when all you really want to have is the outcome of what you want to achieve?
Right.
Yeah.
Is that the case for lenders? Are they better off just not knowing that information? Do they have to know all that kind of granularity to, understand the risk involved in a certain customer?
In the traditional kind of, if you're talking about the traditional kind of credit scoring model, then maybe they want to know everything about what actually they need to input as a risk-weighted asset for their own assessment. But I think for us, what we actually really believe is that as a data owner, not just a data owner, but for me as a person, if I'm able to actually have a network that I'm able to tap on, and at the same time, I can also access a lot of other innovative, products and services, whether it's financial products and services or healthcare or lifestyle. And that is also very interesting because what we are trying to build is also a level playing field for the smaller entrants who are really innovative, could be innovative fintech solution providers, who are able to actually customize a lot of products and services to an individual, but they are not able to compete, in a market where data is all locked up with the large incumbents. So this is really what we are trying to achieve with JEDTrade, and we really believe that what we're actually having a competitive advantage on is our research and R&D on the privacy preserving analytics. So that is the one that we're going to actually focus a lot of our R&D on.
Okay, let's talk about some of the use cases then. We've already sort of mentioned, for example, like the inclusive part of the financial solutions. How would it affect people on a day-to-day basis? Where would this actually come into play? Where would be the products and services that would be touched by what you're doing?
So one is financial services, many things. So I'll give you an example. So we have a couple of partnerships that are ongoing as well. So one of them is with a gig sharing economy. So it's a portal for freelancers, for example. Freelancers don't actually have very structured kind of benefits that a salaried employee has. And that's where we partner in a sense that our smart consentable data layer can actually be applied, for all their members who are on their network to be able to also consent their data to other service providers in order to actually get, a better credit rating, for example, for borrowing, or even better social kind of benefits from there. So that is also one of the ecosystem partner that we have. So if you look at it, what we could actually see is a lot of partnerships that we're going to have, even in the social network kind of arena, where I want to actually have access, to somebody's, data, even could be for analytics purpose, and I'm able to actually reach you directly, reward you directly, but not even have, any, privacy being actually used for any unintended purpose. If
you were to take just that example, like the gig sharing, and you took the ASEAN region, I mean, especially if you went to places like the Philippines, for example, where it seems that every other person is on Upwork or one of those sort of gig sharing platforms. They're either a VA or they're doing outsourced digital work. And you have probably the lack of established credit rating agencies there. This must be like the sweet spot for you, surely, that you have this a very large population of people who have money, they have a need for financial products and services, yet they don't sort of conform to the traditional career paths. They maybe have like 4 or 5 different contracts on at the same time. So is that the kind of like area that you see particularly where this may work first?
This is one of the applications. So what I would call that our network is very much focused on building a kind of data access model, where we are also enabling the smart contracts to all the toolkits to actually be deployed by solution providers who want to actually have a tool to actually access the data of a new market that they never had. So what we're actually building is also, leading on to that is what we called it a federated blockchain model, whereby we will actually be building local chains for our local ecosystems, and then also linking them up ultimately via the Jupiter chain mainnet. So what we want to actually achieve is also the exchange of data and value across localities in the end. I find a very important angle for a lot of the data and research analytics companies, because they also told me that one of the pain points is that they can never actually have access to the direct data of what they actually need as well. Everything is all aggregated data at the moment.
Right, yeah. Interesting. I mean, some of the words that you've used, Daphne, I find quite interesting. You talk about democratizing data.
Data ownership.
Data ownership, sorry. So it's not a phrase that you can use lightly. It carries a lot of weight in terms of, the implications of what that means. So how did you get into this? Why is this something that for you is a personal passion? Because it's something you care about. How did you get into that? What was the background that led to that?
Yeah, so I think for this question, I will answer it on behalf of my team. So my team is made out of a few of our co-founders, not just me. We can get
that up on the, just flash that up on, I think your team's there on the website. So
really?
We can just scroll through whilst you're doing it.
Okay.
So go for it, yeah.
You could have told me, I could tell them to be live, in office.
Yeah.
And say hello.
There's too many moving parts in the technology there, so... Okay, so talk us through your co-founders. So their backgrounds are including yourself.
Oh, okay, you have that picture.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So our team is made up of I would say 80% tech or even 90% tech. One of our co-founders there is not there. Very much our co-founders, they are very technical focused. They come from the blockchain background as well as the security background. So with the combination of that and my domain in finance, lending, supply chain, we found a very interesting proposition to actually apply blockchain in a very workable manner. So from day one, when we actually envisioned Jupiter Chain this year and we wrote out a white paper, it's very much with one single focus of operationalizing blockchain.
Right, we've got your white paper there as well. Maybe we can flash that up so if people want to go and check out.
So what I mean by operationalizing it is we want to actually have a model that works, that we're able to go to market, and we never left that vision actually. Because that's our strength.
Yeah, well, so you have a team which is obviously from a technical background. You're from a finance background as well, you said. So what were you doing before this in finance?
So I was 10 years specializing in trade and supply chain finance.
Yeah.
So very much right now, I'm also doing a lot of lectures and teaching on applications of blockchain in supply chain and finance.
Right. Okay.
And it's always this same topic. That's the only thing I know.
Yeah, right. Well, that's great. I mean, it's something you know and you can double down on because it's your speciality, right?
Yeah, and to answer your earlier question, how we got to that, it's also, our CTO, Dr. Ernie Teo, he came from the research background in blockchain from very early on as well. He had stints in IBM. He has saw different use cases, both workable and non-workable. The other co-founder, Zichong, 15 years in the security space, been there, done that, went through the PKI space even before we coined the term blockchain. So very much when we came about doing this, we had the vision that we want to actually build something that revolves around a meaningful use case that is applicable from day one.
Excellent. So before I ask you about your current raise, Daphne, let's just talk a little bit about the you did talk about the technology side, and you talked about, for example, your partners in the ecosystem. And I'm just curious to know, is that, do they get it? Not necessarily your partners, but when you talk to some of the companies that may have been in that ecosystem of finance from your previous life, if you may, that banks, financial companies, financial services, products, do they get it? when you talk to them, are they coming on board with this? Are you finding that some are moving at different speeds to others? What's your sort of response so far when you go and talk about in the terms that you've couched it in, like democracy of data ownership? Are they on board with that?
Yeah. I can answer you this in a two-pronged approach. I mean, from the value proposition point of view, I think it's what we had so far in terms of feedback is that they actually when we first started in May, it was actually in March, April, when we started conceptualizing it. It actually started during like the Facebook saga and things like that. When I was talking to Ernie about it, he was also coming up with the notion that, hey, actually what we are building is actually even more important than our initial use cases. So the feedback so far was great in March. And now, as we move forward, it's even better now. When we started building the awareness of Jupyter Chain, right now we found that our competitive advantage is in our focus on privacy preserving. You know, it's not even about zero proof. It's about how you actually preserve the privacy and retaining the rights to it only in the hands of the data owner. So when we do the data encryption, we always call it that we're going to persistently encrypt it. Nobody has access to look at it. I can't even see it as a platform. So this is what we're actually going to focus our R&D on. That's one. The other thing is the feedback. It's strong, mainly because of the team. We are quite known in Singapore, in ASEAN as well, for our execution capabilities or from our previous track record. So there is a lot of I wouldn't say hype, I would say hope in what we are trying to achieve. There's a lot of support in that as well. We just started our English Telegram channel. We are trying to expand to the Japanese and Chinese channel soon as well, and I'll update you on that as well.
Okay, good. Let's talk about your soon-to-be ICO. What's the situation? You're going through a current private token round. Can you talk us a little bit about what's happening now with your raise?
So I can't give you the specifics of the private round. So right now we're in our private allocation. Our public sale will only be in around September, October this year. We already have some notable funds and partners already on board our project, and we're actually going to do a couple of more announcements every week on the new investors coming on board. But very much our focus is not so much about the raise, although it's we are in it right now, but it's very much finding strategic investors who are able to actually value add to what we are doing in terms of advice, technical advice, in terms of market reach, and in terms of helping us add on more ecosystem partners as well.
Okay. Yeah. I'm looking at the data here. I don't know if this is up to date, but it says here you've got a fundraising goal of 22.3 million US for your ICO. There's no date set for that. Do we have any sort of rough idea of when that will take place? Yeah,
around September, October for the public sale,
Okay, so the public sale, September, October, 22 million. And what will you do with that money? What will that get you for Jupyter Chain?
So that is so 22.3 is actually calculated based on what we require. The digital assets raise is going to be governed under a foundation that will actually steward how we are going to use the funds, which is also in the white paper. This is a 3 to 5 year kind of a runway that we have, and it is based on how we actually going to plan out our development milestones. So this year, Q4, we are already planning to deploy and test out our local chains. And then the second half of next year, we want to also start testing and deploying our Jupyter Chain mainnet as well. So
Good. And expanding the team as well. I'm sure the biggest challenge beyond raising funds is getting good people. It's always a challenge for a startup. And how do you firstly, how do you get the right people? Because it's also a challenge. There must be a lot of technical people out there, but you want people who match the culture of your company. So I'm sure some of those may be listening or watching today. How do you appeal to them? What do you want them to know about you as a company? And therefore, what kind of people are you looking for?
So to be honest, we actually have a lot of people wanting to join us. We are a young company, I would say. For me as a leader, very much my team is very empowered. I would call it decentralized. Sometimes I cannot find anyone, but it's okay because I know that everyone is busy with their own roles. In terms of new roles, we are hiring heavily, as you would know, in the blockchain technical space. I do not go exactly specifically to look for blockchain developers, but I go for good full stack developers who have a passion for blockchain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Because from the way we see how the technology is moving, it's important to actually have the right mindset to actually be able to innovate, but as well be able to unwind and rewind whatever that is not working. So, and we find that as the most challenging part when we run a technology company, because it will never go according to what you want on the first round, but being able to really have the grit to actually, pick it up and then, to restart it over again.
Yeah.
And that's really led by my other co-founders, Zichong and Ernie, looking at how we're going to build a very strong dev team, not just in Singapore, but we also have a partner company in China as well. Yeah.
So if people are in China, you'd be interested to hear from them as well?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So you talk about mindset. What sort of mindset really are you looking for? Are you looking for people who come from the blockchain world or people from the world of finance? What would be interesting to you?
So right now, in terms of roles, it's very much all the technical roles, but as a team as a whole, in terms of culture, I always look for people with the right values and being resourceful and having the right kind of responsible mindset to actually help the team. So I have a very, very good team. I always tell everyone, and that's because everyone tries to actually help everyone do their work better. And you can only really see, the true spirit and execution capabilities of the team in the crisis. And trust me, we have a lot of crises happening in
every day.
In a tech company.
Every day.
Something is down, something is not up, something is not according to timeline. But that's okay, because that is where you see the true character of a team being able to deliver. Yeah.
Wow, excellent. Daphne, thank you very much for coming today. Thanks, and by the way, Daphne brought in a t-shirt, so let's not leave that out. So unveil the t-shirt, please, Daphne. Let's have a look.
Yeah, that's for you. So I brought an M and L. It depends whether you want it to be tight-fitting or...
Well, as I get older, they tight fit by default, I think. Oh, there we go. So there we go. JEDTrade.tech. So there you go. Free advertising.
Oh,
fantastic.
You have to wear it, yeah.
I have to wear it. Well, I'm not going to get undressed on air. I'll scare away the viewers. But thank you very much for coming today. And your white paper's there on your website as well.
Yes.
And keep us updated, because I think, it's a real journey as well. I mean, the way the speed at which you're growing and the projects that you're involved in, we would love to get an update at some point in the future.
Yeah.
See how you're going on the other side of your ICO or whatever happens in the future. Please come back and update us and deliver us some new news from the world of blockchain and JEDTrade especially.
Happy to be invited again. Yeah.
Daphne, thank you very much.
Give me some muffins next time also.
We're working on it. Daphne, everybody, CEO of JEDTrade and also JEDTrade.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Graham.